Another pitch and hanging slider. That's going to be deep to right field. Welcome back to our MLB The Show 25 expansion franchise series with the Nashville Stars. In episode 3 here today, we're going to pick up a few weeks later into the season this time. We are sitting in the division 4th place at 21-26 for the year. Not a bad start to the year. We're 6-4 in our last 10. We've picked it up pretty well as a first year team. We are well ahead of the Nationals, who have done some interesting stuff. They traded James Wood away early on this season. I'm not exactly sure why they chose to do that, but some teams just don't want to win, it seems. But we're here competing pretty well. We have dropped out of the 3rd place spot we were at the first couple weeks of the year. The Braves also have bumped up all the way up to the 2nd spot, 9 games above 500. So they're pushing very hard for the Phillies this year. But looking here, you can see we don't have that great of a batting average at 226. Just really haven't got it off to a hot start this year. But our ERA is very good at a 3.83. And the big part of that is because our bullpen has been so exceptional to start this young season. These guys have done well all throughout the year. A bunch of them around that 3.0 ERA or just a little bit above. Aaron Bromer has been exceptional at 15 innings with 1.8 ERA with a 1.4 whip and 12 strikeouts. Aaron Ashby has also been really good in 25 innings of work. I think he's been the most worked bullpen arm we have this season. He has 25 strikeouts and a 1.75 ERA with just above a 1 whip. And then the man of the year has been Jonathan Loaisiga. 18 innings of work, 11 strikeouts, 1.5 ERA with a 0.89 whip. He also has 14 saves this season in 18 games. Just exceptional stuff. Has been really good all year. And he's really been holding the fort down at the tail end of games to give us these big wins that we seem to be getting every single week. But taking a glimpse at our lineup, we just haven't had a ton of success in the batter's box for anybody on the roster. One of the biggest issues I see this year is that Jock Peterson is at a 180 average with only 1 homer this season. We brought him in to be a big bat that destroys righties this year, and he just hasn't been performing. In 133 at-bats, he only has 24 hits with 1 homer and 11 RBIs. He's slugging only .218 on the year. His OPS is .541, which is almost 300 points below his career average. And it's just very disappointing all the way through, especially since we're paying him $18.5 million on this season. And we were looking for him to be a big trade piece at the deadline, hopefully trade him away to a World Series contender, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to because nobody's going to pick him up if he's only batting 180. But at our most disappointing spot, we have Edward Cabrera, who has had a miserable start to the season. We dropped him down to AAA. He's actually had a good 2 starts there so far. He hits a 2.53 ERA in 2 games with 10 2/3 innings of work. So he's done very well once we demoted him, but in the majors, he just wasn't able to bring it around with an 8.24 ERA, which is almost double what his average was for his career, and that's just not going to cut it for us. He was supposed to be our ace this season. We think he's going to be the ace of the future with that B potential, but he just hasn't really shown it this year, which is really disappointing. So to combat that, we did move Joey Cantillo to our ace spot. He's had a great year with a 3.49 ERA and 49 innings of work with 43 strikeouts. Very good stuff from the rookie. But the man of the episode is going to be River Ryan. We are going to promote him to the MLB roster, and he's going to start his very first game today in this episode. So we'll take a look at that against the Tampa Bay Rays as we try to get a win here at home. Let's go ahead and jump into it and see what Ryan can do on the bump today. And we are here with our very first minor league promotion this year, and it is River Ryan. He has had an exceptional start to the season in AAA. He had a good start last year with the Dodgers while he was filling in some for injured players during the regular season, but he got demoted back to AAA towards the end of the year. And so we were able to pick him up in the fantasy draft as one of our 4 top prospects that we were able to choose there. He pops it out to the right fielder, and it is a great way to start the day for Ryan. If he can come around and find some way to just be a guy that can produce in a 4 or a 3 slot for us, I don't anticipate him being the ace in the future, especially since we have Cantillo on the roster. He gets squeezed there a little bit at the knees. Unfortunately today, we'll see if the ump will give us that call later in the game, but we'll get another ground out, or we'll get a ground out here to get the 2nd out of the inning. So what a great start. The high heat will get a strike there for Ryan. And like I was mentioning, he's not going to be ace potential as he comes back with a big strikeout to end the inning on a scary hitter, Diaz. And what a great start by Ryan today. But this next batter, Brandon Lau, will take one deep to right center field at the wall, and he jumps and it's right outside of his glove. And that'll be the first big league homer that Ryan has given up this season. I'm not really sure what we missed the spot with the pitch, and he was able to take it deep. But back here against Christopher Morel, who drives it deep to left, but that will die short of the warning track for out number 1. And the third batter of the inning will take one into the right field gap, and it bounces out of play for a ground rule double. And Ryan has been getting kind of tattooed here in the second after a good first inning outing. He's just been giving up hits here and there, and that is another big hit into the gap in right field. The runner will stop at first by a great cutoff there by our center fielder, DeLuca. But that will mean they will score a run from second to put this game at 2-0. And he is yet to get his second out of the inning, but he does come back with a strikeout on Jansen, his second of the day. And taking a look at the StatCast, was a beautiful combination of his sinker and circle change working together to kind of build that pitch toning we really want. In 6 pitches, he was able to strike out Jansen on that nice slider he has. But coming back here, the last batter of the inning will be grounded up to the pitcher himself. He'll be able to make a nice play, and a close play at first will be called for and out. So Ryan has allowed 4 hits in his last 5 batters faced, and that is just not going to cut it out at the big leagues. But he has settled down here with a strikeout, his 3rd of the day. And another great view from the StatCast, starting off with a slider, back to the circle change, and then coming with the high heat back-to-back. Gets no call there at the top of the zone, and it will be a strikeout. You can see those 2 circle changes working together. They come from the same spot, but they drop about 5 to 6 inches difference. Coming in that same speed is very difficult for players to get on top of, and that'll be a ground ball double play there to get out of the inning onto the top of the 4th, and we'll start it with a ground ball out with a full count. Back with Morel up, he is 0 for 1 today, and he will go back down with another strikeout, 4th of the day for Ryan. But a big bat, Aranda will take one to center field, but it is barely even going to cause the center fielder to move. But looking at the starter comparison, you can see it's pretty even today. We have given up 2 runs, but we have 1 more strikeout and no walks comparative to Baz. But back up here against Junior Caminero, who can be a deadly hitter, but he will strike out on that fastball up and in for strike number 3. Bounces back with another strikeout on Jansen on that nice slurve down at the knees for his 6th strikeout of the day, and an absolute dominant performance on the mound if you exclude that 2nd inning. And it's been very good going. Up to 88 pitches now for Ryan, and he'll get one on top here by Kim and across the diamond, and it won't be close as he will able to inch it out for an infield single. But he's going to try to steal here, and he will be gunned to end the inning. Nice throw there by our catcher to make up for that close call at first base on that hit. But in the 6th, we will be relieved by Aaron Ashby, who's had a great start to the season, and that is not too bad of a start by River Ryan. But before that, I did want to cover some of the possible draft picks we can pick. We're sitting at a 7th overall draft pick for the first round, and we'll work our way down from there. Looking through here, there are a ton of pitchers that are going to be highlighting the top 10 of this draft. We will probably scout all 10 of these guys. While there aren't very many perks to being one of the worst teams in the league, there are in the fact when you go to drafting that you can literally pick anybody up here in the top 15 or 20 players, and you're probably going to improve at least one position on the field. And if you go down to the 2nd and 3rd rounds, if you find some hidden gems, you'll probably improve more than one position. And I'm just really excited for this draft just because it looks like there are a lot of good starting pitchers, which is an area that we really need to focus on. The 7 of the top 10 are starting pitchers. And the first 2 guys we're going to cover are 2 guys we want to take in the first round of that number 7 draft pick. And the first one is going to be Chris Patton, an international player out of Venezuela. He looks to be very good. MLB.com has him slotted as the number 7 draft pick in this year's draft. We have him a spot higher at 6, so it would be a steal if we could get him to come play for us. He is a 21-year-old right-hander. He has very high potential from 82 to 94 at 100% scouted. He's going to slot in around a 65 overall when he comes in. But looking at his pitch mix, he has a 4-seamer, 2-seamer, changeup, and slider. The only issue I do see here is that he doesn't have a very high-graded pitch outside his fastball that gets up to 99 miles an hour. And also, he only really has 2 speed differentials when he's throwing. So he has that 97 and 99 on his fastballs, and then that low 90 speed for his changeup and slider. I would love to see those differentials be greater for his off-speed pitch, so he can throw a couple different looks at batters. But he has really showed himself to be a very dominant pitcher, going after hitters in the under-21 international championships for Venezuela this past season. So he's been very good all around. And if we can, he'll probably be our first option to draft at that 7th spot. But as our second option is a little bit of a sneakier pick than our last one, and that is going to be Ward Cabrera. He is slotted as the 21st overall draft pick by the MLB.com, but we have him as the 12th pick. A little bit lower for what we would like for our 7th pick, but we could sign him under slot value, which would be very beneficial since we're going to need to save as much money as possible. The 21-year-old 5'10 lefty has been at JUCO for 2 years, but he's looking to move on to the MLB this season. His potential isn't as good as Patton's, but he's very serviceable. His hits per 9 is an 80 grade, so that's very good as well. His pitch mix is very good as well. His 4-seamer is a very good pitch, coming up all the way at 98 miles per hour. He has 3 speed differentials, which is very good, and that cutter slider combo is going to be exceptional, especially since you're going to get some different views at pretty much the same velocity out there, so it's really going to confuse hitters up at the plate. And my main concern with Cabrera is that his motivation is only 53% with us. He does have a few offers from East Coast teams like Rutgers and Maryland, so we're going to have to probably offer him a little bit more than what we would want to, but it's still hopefully under slot value, so we can get a bit of a deal if we choose to go with Cabrera over Patton. But outside of that, the top 100 is going to be very heavily saturated with starting pitchers, which is good for us. We're trying to build up our starting pitcher depth in our organization this season, so that is going to be something we look forward to. So it's very good that there's a ton of starting pitching. My only concern is that we're not going to be really able to upgrade anybody in the field, and that is going to maybe be an issue down the line. But we do have a few options in those categories as some of our later picks, specifically that 39 and 42nd pick. So we'll go take a look at 2 guys that we're seeing that may slot well there. And the first is going to be Daniel Helton, a relief pitcher with really good potential. We have not scouted him yet. He is going to be on our scouting board this week, so hopefully in 2 weeks we'll know more. But he looks to be very good. He slots in at 39 overall in the MLB draft, so we shouldn't see a CPU team go down and grab him. But his initial attributes look great. I mean, a bunch of well above average stats, which those typically drop for younger guys. But his pitch mix is really what I'm interested in, is the fact that he has a 2-seam fastball, which isn't the best, but he has a changeup and a splitter. Those are 2 pitches that will kind of profile the same way coming out of his right hand pitching slot, but they have a 7 mile per hour speed difference, which can really confuse batters, especially that splitter. It is an 80+ grade splitter, so one of the better pitches in this draft. So that is something we're going to be looking to see if it will develop once we get a little bit more scouting on him. And then the next player is Bo Roger, the first baseman out of Massachusetts. He's spent 1 year at JUCO, and he is coming to the MLB now. He's a 6'4" righty, and he is going to be hopefully our first baseman of the future if he pans out in these next few weeks of scouting. There's nothing really exceptional about him except for that his fielding may be one of the top first basemen in the class. His batting isn't great, but his contact and power both grade out at around 65 to 70, so that's not the worst thing in the world. If we can develop him in our system with a little bit of batting coaching, hopefully the fielding will help carry him and we won't see errors over there. It's not the greatest. You don't want the best fielder in the world at first base. You'd rather have a big bat there, but we're going to have to pick and choose how we go through this draft, and we're going to fill other spots than just starting pitching. So as we've progressed through a couple weeks of the season, I want to catch up with our team here a few weeks later, and you can see Jonathan Loaizaga sits at 3rd place in saves and NL leaders with 22. He is going for his 23rd in this game versus the Pirates, and the first man to face him will be Joey Bart, who grounds out into a double play with an amazing play there by our promising youngster second baseman Colt Keith, who makes an amazing jumping throw to finish that double play off, a 6-4-3. As we come back up here, Loaizaga will face IKF here at the plate. But Loaizaga has been such a nice tool for us to use out of the bullpen. He's been exceptional all year long. He may be our biggest trade piece coming into the end of the year. We are sitting right under 500 as Colt Keith makes a diving stop to end this one. And that will put us at 33 and 33 on the season, right at 500. And that is a great place to be sitting going into the last part of the season before All-Star break. If we can go with strong into All-Star break, we may be looking very good coming out of it. But picking up here in Washington, D.C. as our second part of these review series, we will be looking at Jock Peterson. He's not had an exceptional year so far, batting below 200. Here he just got above 200 at 209, but he is coming to the plate with bases loaded in a situation where one swing could give us the lead. He has 81 clutch, and that is really, really good for him to be in this position for us. But we really need him to deliver against Kyle Finnegan. But Peterson will be sitting at a 3-1 count here. One swing will be the end of it. 99 on the gun for Finnegan as he fouls it off to bring it to a full count. Good timing here by Jock Peterson. Just wasn't able to get a hold of it. Another offering here by Finnegan, and that'll be hit through the infield, and that'll score one, but they won't send the second, so that'll be a one-run game here. Big swing, probably the biggest of his season so far. But back up here in the top of the ninth, 2 outs, full count for George Springer, who has done exceptional stuff. Flashing back to the first game of the season, he was able to get a hold of one and send a homer up over the wall on opening day. Could he have another moment here against Derek Law? Coming in, firing log to the plate, and he will be able to stay alive. The cutter down in the middle of the zone, almost outside the zone for a ball. A little early on it, but he was able to just barely touch it with the tip of the bat to stay alive. Another pitch and hanging slider. That's going to be deep to right field, but it is going to die short of the warning track as the Nationals will steal the win here. And as we get out of this game with the Nationals, I do want to highlight some moves around the league. The one we want to show here now is going to be the Diamondbacks are acquiring Parker Meadows from the Detroit Tigers, which is an interesting pick because Meadows isn't that great of a player. He's pretty much capped out his potential with a C, and he's going to be a 77 overall, not batting too terribly hot this season with a .170 average. And he's a center fielder when they already have a very good center fielder in Jake McCarthy, who actually batted 285 last season. So I'm not exactly sure why they would trade for him when McCarthy's only 2 years older at 27, just in his prime. But the Tigers do get a good closer in Justin Martinez with a B potential. It is probably a good steal by the Tigers to go ahead and grab a closing pitcher when their staff's already so good. They're adding another arm to the rotation. And then the Phillies were really trying to get a couple of our players. The first here offering Buddy Kennedy for Javier Sanajo, the second baseman. And I didn't really see what I liked here, so we went ahead and declined it. And then again, they also offered Buddy Kennedy for Josh Dalmont, who may be a trade piece later on in this season before the deadline. But for right now, we wanted to keep him. And Buddy Kennedy just isn't a player we want to build around. Having him at third base just doesn't really feel right for our organization going into the next few years. So we're going to decline this one again. And then lastly, they're going to try for Stalmont one more time with Garrett Stubbs, the catcher, but with Edgar Cuero in our organization, in the pipeline, soon to be in the franchise in the next few seasons. Again, I just didn't feel like this was the right move for a 31-year-old catcher who's on the tail end of his career. But I didn't want to leave this season without making at least one move before the trade deadline. And we have 3 guys on our trade block right now. That's going to be 3 veterans, all at 75 overall. Hopefully we're going to be able to move somebody, but I think we're going to have a chance to at least move one player and get a very good prospect that I think will help us in our future seasons. But before we get into who that is, I do want to set some guidelines up in this franchise of how we go about trading, specifically when we're trading for prospects. When we're trading for MLB ready players, it's pretty much going to be a swap or maybe something that they really need, and we may give them something that's a little bit of lower overall if it's something that they need when they're pushing for a playoff appearance, or if they're maybe down and out, but they have a position player that just hasn't been performing, and we may trade down as well from the other side of it. But when we're trading for prospects, I want to make sure that the trade makes a lot of sense. I don't want to do something that just doesn't make sense for the other team. So one of the examples, I had Jeff McNeil trading to the Guardians for Kyle Manzardo, but they would never in a million years trade for Kyle Manzardo, even though in this game it would allow me to do that. I wouldn't see that as a very good trade for them because they have one of the better first baseman prospects in the league, and they'd be training for a almost end of career second baseman when they didn't really need a second baseman anyways. Leading into the second point, I do want to make sure that the team needs this player. So if we're going to be trading a 78 overall third baseman, I want to make sure that the team we're trading him to doesn't have an 88 overall third baseman, because that wouldn't make much sense. But if they do have a guy that's around that 77 to 80 overall, if that player is one, hurt for a long time, or two, just hasn't been performing well this season, we will probably look at the stats there rather than the overall. And then thirdly and lastly, I do want to make sure that the team is competing at the deadline if we're going to trade a player to them. If we're trading a player that's an upgrading position, that makes sense. But if they're not competing at the deadline and we're trading at the deadline, it wouldn't make much sense for them to trade a prospect because they're not going to be competing for a playoff. So they may just wait to sign that guy in the offseason or trade you in the offseason when the need isn't necessarily there, so they don't have to give up as much. So those three rules we're going to kind of guideline our trades with. So let's get into who we're going to be trading and who we're going to be trading them to. And the team that we are going to be trading to are going to be the Minnesota Twins. They are first in their division and they really need help at second base. Their second baseman isn't that great this season. So we are going to be trading Jeff McNeil to the Twins for one of their younger right fielders who looks to be a very, very good player and looks to help us going into the next couple years of our franchise. And that player is going to be the right fielder, Kale Rosario. The 22-year-old is looking very, very good for us. He doesn't look the greatest when you're looking at just the top level stats and potential, but when you dig into it, he looks to be very good. His overall stats for contact are around that 50s, which is good for a younger guy. He has a couple years to develop. He has 6 years before what you would call his baseball prime. So I'm really excited. His fielding is all right. His arm is actually really good at 73 in that right field slot. You're going to need that. His speed isn't the greatest, but again, that right field slot's going to be a guy that you want to be more of a bat player than a fielder. But when you look at his stats for AAA this season, he is batting .290 in the average, and he is slugging for .401, which isn't the greatest, but it's good enough, and he is a righty. So on our field that we've been playing on this season and we'll be playing on next year, it should be very good for him and lead to some more home runs if he can just poke him over that short left field wall. But after that trade, our roster is in a little bit of a pickle, so we're going to do some rearranging. The first thing we are going to do is demote Liam Hicks, who is a Rule 5 draft player. I didn't mean him have him on the roster, actually, but since he's a Rule 5 draft player, he has to play in the MLB, which did knock down Andy Rodriguez out of here. So we're going to be putting him on waivers, and we're going to be promoting Andy Rodriguez to the MLB roster for the rest of the season. So that'll be the first move. And the next thing we are going to do is going to promote Esteury Ruiz to the MLB roster. He has been in the AAA so far this season, but we did draft him to be kind of a situational player for us. Maybe not playing every day, but possibly playing against some lefties here and there. But he has regressed actually in the left-handed category in power and contact. So we're not really sure what he'll slot in, but he's a fast player that has decent fielding that should help take some of the load of our current outfielders off their plate. But as we wrap up here, I do want to kind of go over into the league as a whole halfway through this season. We are sitting at 46 and 47 going into the draft, which we will cover in next episode. But we've had an exceptional year this year. I mean, going just even right below 500 has been great, especially since we're the 27th ranked team in the MLB. So I'm very, very happy about our prospects this year. The only issue is that we're probably not going to get the best draft slot next year, which could harm us down the road. But with some of the moves we've made so far and maybe this year's draft, we should be in a good position going forward. But let's go ahead and dive into some of these awards around the league. First off, we're going to have MVP. Shohei Ohtani takes that one with a 3.14 average at the plate in the NL. And then in the AL, you have Corey Seager coming up with his MVP award so far, a 290 average. Not too shabby there. And then looking at the Cy Young Awards, you have Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow, both from the Dodgers, in the first and third place in the NL. And Clark Schmidt will take that for the AL. But as we get into the tail half of these awards, I kind of want to highlight our players specifically. And the first one is going to be Jonathan Loaisiga, who is in first place for the Reliever of the Year award in the NL with 30 saves, which is a second leading in the league as a whole. With a 1.35 ERA, Loaisiga has been absolutely dominant on the bump in the closing spot. He has had an interesting career so far, being mostly a reliever rather than a closer. He hasn't had many saves. This year, he has more saves than he has had in his career as a whole. So that's very impressive. I mean, he's been dominant. Hopefully, we can bring him back next year. But we have moved him to be a trade piece for us. So we may have to trade him away if we get a good enough offer. Then we'll have two Gold Glove players that we want to kind of highlight. The first is going to be John Berti, who doesn't seem to play every single day, so I'm not sure how he even qualifies, but he is leading it at the third base spot for the NL, which is pretty exceptional. And then second, we have George Springer, who is a very surprise here. This would be his first Gold Glove award. He is currently in second place for the right field position, so that would be a very, very interesting win if he could get that. And that pretty much wraps up the awards for our team. But moving on into the standings around the league, and the first one we'll cover is going to be the NL East, which you all saw just a little bit ago, but the Phillies should be taking that pretty easily with an 8.5 game lead. Next up, we'll move on to the Central, which is a battle year in and year out. Every single year, it's very tough. All these teams pretty much compete against one another and beat up on one another every year. And it is only a 6-game lead for the Cardinals from the top to bottom. So this could be an interesting race down the line. Then we'll move on to the NL West. And nobody's going to be surprised by this one, as the Dodgers have this one by 7 games on the Diamondbacks. I'm surprised it's not more than that with how good the Dodgers are. But the Diamondbacks have been putting up a good year this season. And then you have the Padres down at the bottom at 31.5 games behind the Dodgers. And they're the 12th best team in the league, which is very surprising and a disappointing performance for the Padres. So hopefully they can turn around next year. Moving on to the wild card, you can see we're actually only a handful of games out of the wild card, but we're probably only going to be competing for one spot, as the Diamondback and Mets are pretty much ahead of everybody. The Braves and Giants are there close for that last spot, but we are 4.5 games back. We could be making a push, but honestly, this season I didn't really expect that, and I don't think that we are going to try to make the push. I think we'll probably fall off towards the end of the year. So we're going to be selling more than likely towards the end of the deadline, but we'll have to see if that pans out to be true. Moving on to the AL, we'll start with the East, as the Yankees have a lead here, but I'm very surprised that it's not a little higher than it is. Being only 4 games up on the Red Sox, they may look to lose that here soon. Moving on to the Central, we have the Tigers and the Twins competing that. After we just made the trade to the Twins, that is very surprising that they fell out of the lead. And then the Guardians are 3.5 games behind them as well, so it's not too far away out of the rim that they can make that. And then lastly, we have the West coming in with the Seattle Mariners above a double-digit games ahead of everybody there. So that is pretty much secured for them if they can just stay around that 500 level ball. And then the wild card you can see here pans out to be the Twins and the Guardians, and then followed by the Red Sox and Orioles. So that should be a 4-headed race there to end the season. But with that, guys, that is the end for the episode. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for the episode 4 in the coming days, and I'll see you all when that drops. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'll catch you all in the next one. And a huge shout out to Chris, our very first premium channel member. Thanks for all your support, man. It's really appreciated.